Focusing on financials this week as well, as investors really gear up for the release of the EU's bank stress tests. Let's talk a little bit more about Hungary and those stress tests with David Costa. He's Dean at Robert Kennedy College. He joins us from Zurich. Thanks very much for coming in, David. The question now seems to be exactly what Anna says. This whole breakdown and taxing the banks, where does Hungary stand now when it comes to the overall European picture?
A very good morning to you. Well, Hungary in particular has now imposed this new tax, and many things will be counterproductive as it can force some of the foreign banks which are dominating in the Hungarian banking market to sort of make a calculation and say whether in a business sense it still makes sense to be in Hungary. So again, increasing taxes too much, taxing banks too much in Europe can certainly be counterproductive, especially now.
Good morning to you, David. This is Chloe, and appreciate you waking up early for us. You think that in terms of the negatives of the results of these stress tests, that it could be some Asian funds selling out of euro-denominated assets, but they're already doing that now. The Japanese pension funds and also the Chinese are now buying JGBs.
This is right, but the big question here is whether the Asian investor sentiment is going to improve or not. So the idea would be to really get those investors back, to win those investors back. And we expect some of the results to be bad, but there is a concern today from many bankers in Europe about the possibility that the test will be misunderstood. So they will pass most of the European major banks, as has been predicted. But at the same time, we have to be careful of how the market is going to interpret it, how the market is going to read the test and really going to look into them on the right way.
David, it's you, Sophia. That's a good thing to talk about and to take off from, and that's basically the results of the test being either too negative or too positive. On the one hand, you need the credibility and you need the transparency as well. Is it a matter of finding a balance, or should it just be, hardcore transparent and just whatever happens to the market happens?
I think the biggest challenge here is not just about transparency, but is the uniformity of the test, which cannot be compared with the US, where there was a single regulator. Here we have a myriad of regulators. We have different criteria applied. For instance, in Germany, it seems that the banks are calculating, making the stress test themselves. So it has to be a balance. It has to be fair, but at the same time, has to take into account that the market is very nervous. Any negative news will probably go the wrong way.
David, very quickly, the FT reports that a number of the bank's directors are very concerned about the results and how the markets are going to interpret them, because they say, you know what, every bank's been done in a slightly different manner. We don't know how the market's going to interpret them.
Yes, it's very difficult to predict, but I'm still positive. I think that overall the market will react positively because the test on the majority will confirm the health of the European banking sector.
All right, David, thanks very much for that. David Costa there joining us from Robert Kennedy College. All right, also wanted to talk about the airline industry.